This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And welcome to Kentucky's Voice, your homegrown Christian conservative talk radio show, covering important issues affecting our local community, our state, and our nation. I'm your host today, Bob Scott. It's Monday, June the 2nd. And I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I know we sure did. If you want to join in today's program, you can call us, or I should say you can text us at 502-571-0970. Again, that text line number is 502-571-0970. The big news story that's sweeping the nation and obviously in our state continues to be about the longtime respected Kentucky State Senator Robin Webb from Ashland leaving the Democrat Party and joining the Republican Party, shocking Democratic Party leadership in our state, and has even gotten national attention from the national media. And with this in mind, I have invited Louisville State Representative John Hodgson here today to talk about this and several other important things all about Kentucky. Before we join and get to John, I have a clip from Fox News in which Senator Webb was interviewed over the weekend. Please play clip one.
A longtime member of the Kentucky General Assembly switching to the Republican Party, marking an end to all Democrat representation in rural Kentucky. It's a major blow to state Democrats who usually held a stronghold in rural areas. And Democrat Governor Andy Beshear, often listed as a potential future White House candidate, too. That former Democrat turned Republican, Kentucky State Senator Robin Webb, joins us now. So great to see you, Senator. So you've been a Democrat for all your life. This is a big deal for you to switch. I know that Democrats in the rural part of Virginia, where I'm from, it's a really big deal for them. What was the last straw for you?
Well, first, a correction. I first registered Republican when I was young, and when I went into coal mining as an occupation, that's when I registered Democrat. So that's a slight correction. But so really, I'm coming back. But it wasn't really a last straw per se. This has been a culmination of several policy shifts through the past few years, and how the rural voice, I've been tried to be the rural voice, but it's just gone not unheard, but certainly not acknowledged and not given the credence that I would think our people need.
Right. Can you give us an idea of some of the issues in particular that you found yourself out of step with the Democrat Party on?
Well, and let me also preface and say, I represented a Republican district as a Democrat for 10 years in the House. So my voting record is consistent, and my voting record is going to still be consistent. It's still me, and I'm still representing the same people. And, and I appreciate all my people, regardless of party I try to represent them. But certainly things through the years, my background's in coal mining. I've been a coal miner and a general counsel for a large coal company and everything in between. And the energy policy that's for oil and gas and coal has certainly stifled our economic development and attraction with utility rates and large capacity capability. So, that has always been a common thread. My cultural issues, I'm a sportsman. I'm past president of the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses. We work with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and our cultural, our rights to hunt, fish, Second Amendment, which I've always got an NRA plus rating. So those kind of things. And then, some more current social issues like, women's sports and those kind of things. So and agriculture, I'm a rancher. I heard you all talking about that earlier. And some of the policies leaning toward animal rights, which I fight not only in my law practice, but legislatively across the country with some national groups. So those are just a few things where my departure shouldn't be a surprise, because these are just the issues that I've championed and will continue to advocate for rural Kentucky, not just in the East, but the West and around.
Well, Robin Webb, Republicans are lucky to have you, and so are your constituents. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all.
And it is my extreme pleasure to welcome back to Kentucky's Voice someone who is a vocal advocate for limited government property rights and just good old-fashioned common sense reforms in Frankfort, Kentucky State Representative John Hodgson. He's a conservative fighter representing District 36 from here in Louisville. Representative Hodgson, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
And obviously, big news, very respected Democrat state senator Robin Webb. In fact, I would argue she probably was the most respected from the Democrat side of things, deciding to make a switch over to the Republican Party. And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've worked around Robin in Frankfort for about 10 years, and I'd say she's the same person, has the same values that she always has, probably has the same voting record, but the party has left her. The party made a huge leftward lurch, I don't know, probably around 2020, and left Robin behind. If you look at some of the voting scorecard, she trails some of the rest of the Republicans in the House by about 10 points. She votes about 75% conservative on social issues, but she's 50 points ahead of the nearest Democrat. So she would, on social issues, probably be slightly less than conservatives than other senators in that chamber, but 50 points better than all of the Democrats.
Wow.
So I think she's in the right spot. I don't expect to see a whole lot of change in what she stands for or what she votes. She's absolutely right. She's been a champion for hunting, for Second Amendment, for outdoorsman stuff, coal mining, all those things. I mean, people in the East are about, faith, family, hard work, and common sense. And they know that boys can't be girls and girls can't be boys, and we don't need, boys and girls sports. And that just, I think she's the same person she's been for a long time, and I think she's going to be a good addition to the Republican Party. And my only sadness is that she used to make a lot of our bills bipartisan. She'd be the only Democrat, voting with us on some good legislation.
Well, it's not too much of a concern there, because I think of the 38 senators, only 6 now are left that are Democrats, and
right.
Maybe a bit of a slip of the tongue by saying left, because they are far left. The ones that are left, and they're all from the urban areas of our state.
Right, they're all Louisville and Lexington.
Yeah, and that's really the point, and that's really, I guess, the gist of all this is the fact that she. It was really the last of the rural, state senators that was actually, getting reelected every year, and she always did pretty well come election time, in a very, very deep red area. It used to not be. I graduated from a high school over in the Ashland area, so and I remember my dad was actually let's just say a JFK Democrat, as I think most of the people over there, and now there has been a switch, that's happened, and they've been solidly red for probably the last couple decades, over there, except maybe when it comes to the governor's races. But beyond that, it's solidly red. So it is interesting, and I'm just wondering what kind of impact this is going to have, with regard, to Andy Beshear's maturations as far as running for the presidency.
Well,
you're smiling, John.
I wish Andy well running for the presidency.
I'm sure you do.
That's somebody I'd really like to see win the Democrat nomination. I think he's an incredibly weak governor.
Yeah,
He's a weak attorney general, just a weak person in general. I can't imagine the Democrat bench is so empty that they've now put him on it. He was on the short list for Kamala Harris for vice president, which was amazing. But that just shows you how empty their bench is and how bankrupt their ideas are. So here a guy is in a state that's controlled by Republicans, and he can't even hang on to the senators and the representatives. People are switching parties. He's essentially running a 2-county race. He's got Louisville and Jefferson County and Fayette County and Lexington, and there's just a smattering of representatives outside those areas, and at least one of them is as conservative as Robin Webb is. So it makes it a little challenging for us in Louisville that are Republicans. We now have 7 Republican state reps from Louisville, which is just great. We've got a very strong voting bloc, but the rural guys tend to think of Jefferson County, well, that's that liberal stronghold, that's a Democrat stronghold. But it's like, wait, we're here. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to drag this in the right direction. And,
yeah, the Democratic Party Chairman Coleman Eldridge, he criticized, of course, big surprise, Webb's move and suggesting she now supports regressive, and I'll say that again, regressive GOP policies. How do you interpret this criticism?
Well, I think if we've regressed to the point that we think that boys are boys and girls are girls, that's a great regression. So I think the world just went mad for a few years there, and everyone was politely just not saying anything. But as we saw in the 2024 election, the average person, 80% of the people, they know men can't have babies. They know that boys are boys and girls are girls, and this whole trans movement and just jamming it down our throats is just crazy. And you can't run a civilized nation that way. So I think it's Coleman's the spokesman for a grossly out of step party.
Yeah, as evidence, as you said, nationally and here in our state. And, with Whip Switch, we have just a few seconds to go in this segment. The GOP definitely solidifies its dominance in Kentucky's legislature. What do you think about the future of that and the continuing to build upon that?
I hope that they will continue to trumpet their crazy left-wing ideologies because they are continuing to leave people behind. And we're seeing conversions of demographics we never expected to see conversions. And I think the Democrat Party, the way they're going, will continue to get weaker and weaker. And I'm glad to see it.
And it's amazing, John, that that trend evidently seems to be continued. Well, folks, you are listening to Kentucky's Voice. My special guest today is State Representative John Hodson. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. It was good. Really good.
Good.
And this next segment's 10 minutes, did you say? Okay. John, do you have any final things you want to say about Robin Webb when we come back? Because we'll have time.
I'm all done with Robin Webb.
Okay. I kind of thought you might be, so that's good. You and Robin, Caroline, and I need to go out again soon. It's been too long.
It's been a while. Well, maybe we'll find one of these rubber chicken dinners that we get obligated to go to, and we can all go sit next to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, it's about 75% of my social life, and Robin does not usually want to participate. But
now maybe she'll come if Caroline's there.
That's right.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice with my special guest together and tried to develop conceptually some things, but talk a little bit about that and what you feel like you bring to the table.
Sure. So the title, I think, is long, but it is descriptive. There's two main things. There's the air mobility part of it. What is that? We can discuss it. And then there's the aviation economic development part of it. The aviation economic development is more plain vanilla. It's like we got two of the largest freight haulers in the world that hub out of here with, UPS and Amazon / DHL in Northern Kentucky. There's a lot of aviation jobs, pilots, mechanics, things related to aviation. And then Kentucky is actually the second leading exporter of aviation products in the nation, second only to Washington State with Boeing.
And
the
that's
reason for
crazy. That's
That's crazy.
absolutely crazy.
Well,
When I heard that statistic, it absolutely blew my mind.
It's in terms of dollars and not truckloads, because these little airplane parts, you'll get a little part that fits on a jet engine that's that big, that costs $15,000 because they're exotic materials and they're plated, and that's mostly what it is. Most of the dollar value, I think something like 75%, is related to the engine manufacturing support services in Northern Kentucky, GE Aerospace, people like that. There's a whole belt of manufacturers around there that support those operations. So it's a big chunk of it is airplane engine parts. So you're not going to see a whole, truckloads of airplane engine parts. They're very small. They're very, very expensive. They're very high tech. But it's a great part of our economy. The very visible part is the hundreds of UPS planes that fly into Louisville every day, the hundreds of Amazon and DHL flights into CVG every day. That's a big part of our economy. It's a lot of employment and a lot of high tech employment. So that's the economic development part. That's a little more plain vanilla. The new and exciting thing is the air mobility. What is that? Well, you may have seen video clips that they are coming up with some things that look like the Jetsons here. They are drones that have 6 or 8 rotors on them, and they'll carry 4 or 5 people, and they are run off of electricity. You charge them up, and they can go maybe a couple hundred miles. They're also called eVTOLs, that's vertical takeoff and landing, or advanced air mobility, AAM, or the buzzwords. But we're right at the cusp of this technology being available. So let's say that you live, again, from my house to CVG, it's about an hour and a half away. Traffic is terrible. I dread the ride, but it's probably 15 or 20 minutes in an advanced air mobility thing. So maybe I meet up at Bowman Field here in Louisville and pay my ticket and get on board and can fly to Cincinnati, where I can from there fly anywhere in the world. That's the idea of air mobility. We've got 59 airports in Kentucky, but only 5 of them are commercial jet service. All the other ones are little airports. So what if we had charging stations at all of these little airports, and passengers could get on board there and park their car 20 miles from their house at the airport and then fly the 100 miles to Standiford Field or to CVG. And that's the whole idea behind air mobility. How can you get over the rivers, the mountains, the traffic, the city, and move people quickly? You're moving them with electricity. There's no pilot. There's no flight crew. So what do we need to do to be prepared for that in Kentucky? I mean, it's coming. It's coming fast. It may be in the next 2 or 3 years we start seeing that. Do we need regulation? Do we need financial incentives? What about the noise? What about these things flying over neighborhoods? The FAA will take care of all the airborne safety stuff, but we've got to look at the Kentucky law parts of that and say, are we ready? You might remember a year or so ago, we started talking about autonomous self-driving vehicles and trucks on the road and how we were going to put a regulatory framework around that. Well, I see this as doing the same thing with these advanced air mobility devices. And I hope that they'll have plenty of leg room and a large weight limit, because I want to ride on one.
That is something straight out of the Jetsons. You mentioned that a few minutes ago. And I just want to, again, it really is hard to wrap your mind around this, but we know technology is moving very fast, and we're seeing, we just did a show last week talking about the new data center, and it's created some blowback, over in Oldham County. But that's being done to help fuel AI, and
Right.
we know that artificial intelligence is here to stay. And now, quite frankly, the United States is playing catch up, with communist China, to hopefully gain some momentum and retake the lead in that. So it is encouraging. And I guess my question to you is, economically, obviously, as this comes about and starts to formulate, and again, in my opinion, and I think yours, it's going to be here sooner than we realize. We're on top of it,
It will. And with that come a lot of jobs for remote drone pilots, for drone mechanics, people, high-tech jobs in that sector that we've got to be ready for.
Yeah, and you said remote drones, and I did hear you say that there won't be an actual pilot. Let's just say we go to one of these remote airports where people can go and get on and catch a flight to Louisville or Cincinnati, wherever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you, it still makes me a little nervous, the idea of not having someone there, because I know how technology can mess up,
Right.
from that standpoint. So they're going to have to do a lot of convincing for me, to before I actually. But I love the idea conceptually. And do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely. I think it's going to happen one day, and I think as you said, it's going to be here sooner than later. And we know that the benefits to this economically are going to be absolutely astounding. And I just wonder. And again, you're just getting into this, but do you think that this will have a positive impact for your district specifically?
There are a lot of business people in my district that have to travel, and you can't always get all the flights you need out of Louisville. It would be really nice to be able to get to CVG quickly, to catch a flight somewhere else in the world, because Louisville does not have a lot of nonstop flights, whereas CVG does. I think particularly at times like Derby and big conventions, if people could take one of these air taxis, I'll call it, and fly from the airport to the downtown convention center, what a boost that would be. Just fly right over the top of the traffic, or for Derby, something like that. So I think there's a lot of potential. But I think rural people could potentially benefit a lot too. It shrinks the world. When I started here with the UPS airline in 1985, 40 years ago,
and you were an executive with them. You were
was
pretty high up in the food chain there.
Yes, and one of the things that UPS did was it shrunk the world. We got to the point. This has been decades ago that you could order something online anywhere in the world and get it, delivered to you by 8:30 in the morning in any metro area in America, because of the UPS, network. And being able to fly at 600 miles an hour really shrinks the world for you. And that's spawned a whole industry around Louisville with warehouses and fulfillment centers and things like that. So I think these can be transformational technologies for a community.
Yeah, they really can be. And we have just a little bit of time left in the segment. How can the public stay informed about the task force and its activities, and provide input into it?
Yeah, we will be having public meetings in Frankfort. Those will be televised on KET, as well as available recorded on YouTube. And the public's welcome to come observe in person. They can email me if they got questions or ideas. And,
fantastic. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back with State Representative John Hodgson here on Kentucky's Voice. Ooh, it's a long one.
All right.
You better be ready to pontificate.
Eat my Wheaties here. So. This is one where you want to talk about stuff in my newsletter, right?
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, the first question, I'm sure you see it. Your newsletter mentions the start of the interim session.
Right.
What key issues are you focusing on during this period? So again, you have lots and lots of opportunity to talk. And then the second question, you highlight the appointment to the Air Mobility and Aviation, which we just beat like a dead horse, but
we did.
But we can talk about how that might align with your legislative priorities, too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice with my special guest today, Kentucky State Representative John Hodgson. If you'd like to text a question in, now's your opportunity. That phone number is 502-571-0970. Again, the text phone number is 502-571-0970. We'd love to hear from you. You know, it's not that often you get a chance to ask one of the leading state representatives that's representing you a question. So please feel free to text us. John, when we went to break, we were just obviously talking about a lot of things and that are going on within our state. And I know you just put out your newsletter that you do religiously to keep the folks that you represent kind of in tune with what's going on, not just in your district, but what's going on in the state, you know, because
Right.
even though you're elected to the 36th district, you really do also represent the entire state, you know, the people of the Commonwealth. And your newsletter specifically mentions the interim session that you're rolling into. And I guess my first question would be, what key issues are you focusing on during this period?
Okay, well, first let me explain what the interim session is, if people aren't familiar with it. We can't vote on any law in this time frame, but from June through end of November, really, we have committee meetings and we go in depth into things. If we have big bills we need to discuss, that's the time we have plenty of time. We get to air them out. We get public input. I'm on 5 different committees. I'm on the Elections and Constitutional Amendments Committee. I've got a lot of tweaks that we want to do to our electoral process to improve it. I recently got there's an American Legislative Exchange Council. I'm now on the committee nationally to propose model policies for how we can improve election integrity across the country. So that's something I always pay attention to. I'm on the State Government Committee. We'll be hearing a lot of things pertaining to efficiency. Everybody says we need DOGE to come to Kentucky. Well, I couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have a formal DOGE process as long as Andy Beshear is the governor, because he doesn't really want one. But we are going to be taking a hard look at government efficiency. Where can we cut the budget? Where can we trim back unnecessary things? And that's one of the things we'll perhaps look at in the State Government Committee. I'm on the Transportation Committee also, where we're always looking at transportation issues. One of the things that comes up a lot that I'm not necessarily a fan of is people keep proposing using automated methods to give you a traffic ticket for speeding or running a red light or something like that. I've been a fairly vocal opponent of that. I said, you know, fine if you have computer augmentation, but we need a live human police officer that's actually on the scene that gives the ticket, you know, does the pullover. You don't want to get a ticket 2 weeks later in the mail that a computer said you were speeding, because I think it violates, you know, due process and privacy and a bunch of things. So we did actually get a bill passed through that Transportation Committee last time about speeding in work zones, but it does include the component that an actual live police officer pulls you over with the picture of the radar gun and how fast you were going in the work zone. So that's the kind of things we debate. Sometimes it gets a little bit heated, but I think we get a better answer that way. And it's great to debate those things in the off season where the clock is not a factor. You've got plenty of time to discuss it. All these meetings are open to the public. They're all televised on KET. I'm also on 2 committees that are related to information technology. And we, the Small Business and IT Committee, as well as the Information Technology Oversight Committee, we look at a lot of things related to how can we use new technology, new software to enhance the process of government. You know, there, you know, databases and quicker things. One of the things people complain about bitterly all the time is, why does it take me so long to get a deadgum driver's license? Yeah, that's something we're trying to get.
It's a real problem. Yes.
Yeah, trust me, we know. I've experienced it myself. It's very frustrating, but some of our technology is old and mired in the 80s, and you know, we've got to update those systems to have quick response time. So I'm always looking at election integrity. I'm always looking at personal privacy and how can we can protect ourselves from the government. I would like for government to be more efficient and to do things better, but I don't want to enable the government to spy on us more, control us more, get in our lives more. The government needs to be our servant, not our master, and that's something that I am committed to. And frankly, it's a fine line, because on the one hand, you know, chaos and anarchy and crime can run amok, and people say, please protect us, give us more security, give us more cameras, give us more monitoring. But then once you do that, you can end up with a totalitarian government like China that's watching you all the time and says, hey, you just threw a piece of litter on the ground. You know, we're going to deduct $5 from your bank account. Is that you know, the kind of society we want to live in?
Yeah, you know, we just got a text in, and they asked the question: will keeping the House and Senate in session year round go back to a public vote? Because I know some states they do that. We don't. Our current form seems to work pretty well, and especially, you were talking about the interim session where you still get a lot of things done, and you're pretty much ready to go. Fortunately, the next session, which will begin next January, will be a long session, so it'll be 60
Right.
days as opposed to the short session that we just came off of. But again,
So,
as we saw with COVID, sometimes it might make some sense to be able to, if you could go into session immediately. And I don't know, what that would look like. But what are your thoughts about what the
well,
texter asks?
we had a constitutional amendment put on the ballot 4 years ago to do something like that, to kind of enable the legislature to be in session at longer times. Um, but the people voted that down because people said, gosh, the old saying was, no man's property is safe as long as the legislature is in session. People are afraid about, what we might do. And I'm afraid of that too. I mean, I think I'm one of the good guys, but I won't always be in office, and I don't know if I trust everybody else with a 12-month session. So there's pros and cons. We did take care of the governor's emergency power situation. That if he has an emergency that's going to go on for more than a minimal time, it seems like it's 30 days or something like that, he has to call the legislature into session to ratify that, and that would prevent the runaway train we had with the Andy Beshear in 2020 when he locked our state down, and we kept having to go to federal court and sue him and win to get an injunction to be able to do things like go to church and cross state lines and assemble and outdoors and have protests. And we sued him again and again, and we won again and again, but it took a long time to do that. And that's what people ought to be looking at when this guy talks about running for president. This guy is a totalitarian. He wants with a smiling face, and I do not want that kind of government. I do not want the nanny state. I don't want somebody that is regulating us all the time. And I think our legislature is committed to holding that line with 80% majorities in both chambers. We're not going to let the governor run amok like that ever again.
Yeah, and John, that's clearly what the people of the state want. They want less government. The goes back to the Ronald Reagan famous saying, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Said no reasonable person ever. And that's something I think. And again, we should have seen with the actions that you just mentioned that the governor took during the pandemic that really put up red flags everywhere, and which he said is also very true. And when you argue that they're kind of, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this, that they're kind of doing this, not kind of, they are trying to do the same thing with President Trump nationally by taking him to court through federal activist judges that are slowing down the process, of what he's trying to accomplish.
Right. I mean, they're exercising lawfare against us. They're using activist judges that are the framers of our Constitution never intended for some district judge to overrule the president of the United States on a national issue.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I think to the extent that those things become an issue, they should immediately be elevated to the Supreme Court. And but that's a game that they're playing, and I think little by little, Trump is starting to win that. We're seeing some rulings come down. The Supreme Court is very timid about ruling on these things. They don't want to stick their neck too far out. They are, in effect, politicians do. They live inside the beltway, and they're not immune from public pressure. But I think structurally, if you allow a chief executive to do whatever he wants without judicial review, that's a problem. But if you have activist judges that are stepping outside their bounds and they are putting a clamp on what's clearly in the Constitution, an executive privilege, that's a problem as well. Our framers gave us a government of checks and balances. That the ambition of one man checks another, as they said. That the judicial, the legislative, the executive branch would check each other, and we even have two houses in the legislative to check each other. We probably fight more between the House and the Senate than we do with the other bodies of government.
Yeah, and that does happen, folks. I've been there. I've seen it firsthand. And again, that's one of the beautiful things that makes our government in the way of running things all the more special. John, you all passed more than, I want to say, 150 bills, or it might have been right at 150 bills in 2025. Which legislation do you believe will have the most significant impact on your constituents?
Well, the most consequential thing for sure is House Bill 1, and the numbers do mean something. That was the income tax cut, where we're taking the state income tax from 4% to 3.5%. You may remember 7 or 8 years ago, that was 6% income tax. And that was a high enough income tax that people that were retired could afford to buy a condo in Florida, go down there and live for 6 months in a day and make their condo payment with what they were saving on income tax. Driving residents out of here. And that's not where we want to be. We want to be at zero income tax. It's going to take us a while to get there, but we're down in January. We'll be down from 6 to 3.5. And that's going to put, a lot of money. That put $718 million back in the paychecks and the pockets of our consumers here in Kentucky. We want people to take that money and go out, go spend it, go invest it, go, improve your house, improve your economic situation. And we will fund the government through consumption taxes, but we don't want to penalize people who are working and making the economy go by taxing their income.
You do encourage public input through various channels. What are some of the most pressing concerns you've received from your constituents recently? I have a feeling one of those might be we touched upon it briefly, but the licensing, driver's license issue, and maybe bringing that back to the counties. Is that a reality that could happen?
It's a possibility. There are problems with that too. The circuit court clerks that had it before don't want it. So the county clerks in some places are willing to take it on, some places are not. What caused this problem, though, was the federal government overreach, causing Kentucky to go into the Real ID program, which means you've got to come in with your birth certificate, original copy, and your social security card, and all these things, and really gummed up the works with getting your license or even renewing your license. And that's why the lines are so long. For goodness, we were renewing regular old licenses for decades without a problem. But it's something we're trying our best to address. People complain bitterly about that. They have to take a whole day off from work to go wait in line to get a license renewed. That's just nuts.
Yeah.
Government should not be that way. And I would point out the government the governor, Andy Beshear, is in 100% control of that process. I always have to say that.
It's nice to point that out. So people know and understand that who's really controlling that. So as you mentioned, it is our governor that has oversight of that. Anyway, you're listening to Kentucky's Voice. My special guest today has been State Representative John Hodson. We're going to be right back with our final segment. Stay tuned. Just so you know, I know there's nothing you can do about it, Daniel, but apparently somebody just texted in and said a very bad reception day, sometimes off the air for a couple of minutes and then back on, so that's it. Okay. Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, that's those things happen. This is a good show. Yes, I hope John takes a very short moment on the break here.
Well,
I'm surprised I haven't had to at this point, to be honest with you, the way things were looking at about 3 or 4 in the morning.
I feel for you.
All right, John, final segment, legislative updates and road infrastructure developments. Is there anything else specifically you want to make sure I bring up?
We might talk a little bit about the budget for next year.
Okay.
I think the stuff you have listed here is good.
Okay.
The roads are certainly
Always
big
an issue.
chunk of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice with my special guest today. It has been Kentucky State Representative John Hodson. It's been a very, very informative show. If you'd like to ask a question, you can text us right now And I promise you I'll try to get to it. That text line number is 502.
But those are the arteries that are carrying the new traffic from thousands of homes being built out here. Our district is the fastest growing part of the state. People are buying houses. Frankly, I think a lot of that development is misdirected, because if you go inside the Waterson, what do you see? You see wide streets, you see street lights, you see sidewalks. They've got snow removal and, fire protection and all this great infrastructure downtown. And there's people leaving. We've got buildings that are empty, high vacancy rate, and they come out here to the east end and they dig up the floodplain, dig up the creek, and put 5 houses per acre. And I think that's crazy, because Shelbyville Road is almost impassable in terms of traffic. We've got traffic studies that say within a few years it will take you better part of an hour to turn left at rush hour. The traffic,
wow.
if you're coming off of Johnson Road. So Johnson Road got a lot of attention for two reasons. One of them is that it was a road that was only rated for 44,000 pounds, and they're rolling 100,000-pound construction trucks down it, and it has absolutely destroyed that road. It looked like a minefield. It was rare for a day to go by that some constituent was not contacting me about Johnson Road. And I'm talking to the city and talking to the state. The city patches potholes, and the state, repaves the roads there on that state road. It's a cooperative agreement that they have. But thank goodness they found some money in the Rural and Municipal Road Fund to repave Johnson Road. It's actually kind of a surprise. I'm not privy to that priority list how quick they're going to pave something, but somebody said, hey, they're paving Johnson Road. We've been complaining for 2 years, and by golly, they didn't just pave it, but they milled the pavement down 2 inches, down to the level where all the potholes were breaking through to the gravel, and, put a new layer of asphalt on there, and it's great. I drove the whole thing. It's smooth, but it's still 2 lanes wide. We've got a study to improve that road to make it a little bit wider. I can tell you the geography is not there to make it ever a 3-lane road. So in my entire district, I don't think we have any 3-lane north-south corridors, and that hamstrings us. East-west, we've got Shelbyville Road, we've got I-64, we've got Taylorsville Road, and we've got the new Old Henry Road, which is terrific. It's 3 lanes with a turning lane, but all the north-south roads are the pinch point. So we've got hundreds of millions of dollars allocated to do stuff in this end of town, but it's not going to make things a lot better than they are now in terms of traffic delay. It's going to make things worse in the future, if that's a correct term, because the growth is up. The number of housing developments being approved are up, and we're going to have a heck of a time keeping up with construction. Like I say, we got a tremendous amount of money approved to do those things, but it's a matter of how much construction can you do all at once.
Yeah.
You have to buy land, and you have to move utility poles and move water lines and all those things, and it takes, frustrating. It's 6, 8, 10 years to get a project from conception to completion on the roads, and that's usually one of the first parts of my newsletter, because that's what I hear more about than anything else. Everybody of all political stripes are concerned about roads.
Yeah, and it's, to me, it's insanity, especially with the unmitigated growth, really unparalleled growth that the east end of Louisville is now experiencing. That not more attention is being put towards speeding up the process with regard to addressing this and creating a relief valve, if you will. And I know that you introduced House Bill 31, which does require developers to bond for road repairs caused by their activities.
Right.
There, and what progress has been made on this bill, and what challenges have you encountered with regard to that process?
Well, not surprisingly, the development community is not in favor of that. There's a loophole. When you get a permit from the city of Louisville, you have to put down a bond to repair any city of Louisville roads that you damage. But 1531 is a state road, and that was a loophole. So 1531 was destroyed by construction traffic, and the taxpayers are having to pay to repair it. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. So I will put that bill forward again. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more traction this time. And maybe since we've just invested millions in repaving Johnson Road, they'll be a little more concerned about taking care of it. But yeah, when you run a 100,000-pound truck down a road rated for 44,000 pounds, good things don't happen.
Yeah.
But
no,
the other thing that we've got to do, and I'm actually working with the mayor on this, we are in agreement that we've got an urban core in Louisville. Let's just talk in general terms, inside the water, downtown, all that area. We've got great infrastructure. We've got wide streets, sidewalks. We got natural gas. We got snow plowing. all this infrastructure is available, and that area is becoming depopulated. And it's not good to have a depopulated urban core.
Yeah.
You have to have a strong, vibrant urban core with museums and shops and businesses and shows and sports arenas and things like that to be the hub for the suburbs. That's what we're sub to, is the urban area. So we have a rapidly depopulating downtown and urban area and runaway development in the East End. We're trying to reverse that. We want to pump the brakes on tearing up, green fields and valleys and floodplains here in the East, and go into downtown and have incentives for redevelopment. Let's fill up that empty building. Let's convert that office building into condos and apartments. Let's, tear down some dilapidated structures and replace those with modern townhouses where people can have an urban ownership and opportunity, instead of just being trapped into this thing where you have to either rent an apartment or go buy a house that's too big for you way out in the suburbs.
In fact, somebody just texted in and said, thank you for your efforts on Johnson Road. It definitely is appreciated. But with regard to, and I'm in full compliance with what you're saying with regard to the downtown area, but dadgummit, I think for people to start wanting to go back downtown, aren't they going to have to feel safe?
They absolutely are. And that's why people are leaving, is because they haven't felt safe downtown. Now, I've got to say, in fairness to this mayor, the mayor we had for 12 years was just a disaster, a train wreck. He let the wheels come off of our city in 2020. This mayor is committed to reducing crime. We passed, my colleagues and I passed one of the toughest crime bills in a generation here at House Bill 5 a couple of years ago, with mandatory sentencing and group violence intervention and a whole host of things. A ban on street camping, for instance. And if you drive around, you'll see the unsheltered homeless people wandering around are greatly reduced. The campsites are down. The crime rate is down significantly in terms of violent assault and murder. It's not by accident. We've got task forces working on that, and I think this mayor, who's much more of a moderate than the last guy, he wants a safe city, and he knows that you've got to be safe. Frankly, most of the business you get in Louisville, if you're downtown, I've interviewed some of the restaurant people down there. They said 80% of their business is not from locals; it's from convention traffic, tourists, and people who are there for things at the Yum Center. Basically, native Louisvillians are not going downtown much to eat lunch anymore. We've got to reverse that. That used to be a great place to go. I'd take my family down to the museums, to the walking bridge, to the waterfront park, Thunder over Louisville, and it was terrific. But we let crime get out of control in 2020, and we've got to put it back into control to make people safe enough to go downtown.
What you just said proves a point that it is possible for Republican and Democrat leadership to work together. And imagine this for the good of the common people, that they're elected to serve. And I agree with you. I think Mayor Greenberg has done a solid job. Certainly has been an improvement over his predecessor in doing that. And he is more, I guess, he has that entrepreneur spirit about him, and he understands, he gets it, and these are things that we as a city and really as a state need to be thinking about forward looking projects, like this, and trying to work together when we can. We know it's not going to be possible a lot of times, but again, when we can, it's important that this happens.
Yeah. Something else too, I think people need to realize, as people with property and money flee the urban area, the criminals don't say, darn, there's nobody down here to rob anymore. They come to the suburbs. I live way out on the fringe of the county where it's, septic systems and 5-acre tracts. We've had carloads full of guys from downtown in stolen vehicles come out here at 4 a.m. with a military precision operation. They pull every handle on cars, every car parked outside the neighborhood. They stole a couple of cars. They are not breaking into houses yet, but we've got them on video with guns in their hand, and they're coming to where the people have stuff, and they're stealing cell phones and jewelry and guns out of cars. So moving to the suburbs does not make you safe long term. We need a safe county, and we need to be putting criminals in jail for a long, long time.
In fact, your question or answer that you just gave, and so be the final text question I'll take. It says, when do we get a juvenile center? I think they meant to say juvenile detention center, but more effort, needs to be placed in that direction.
No question. Kevin Bratcher got House Bill 3 passed about 4 years ago to fully fund a juvenile detention center downtown, and the governor's people, Governor Beshear, once again, have drug their feet. Mayor Greenberg has done everything he had to do to vacate that building and make it available. The state will not even talk to us about why it's taken so long. It should have been done already. Because we have to truck juvenile offenders all the way to Adair County to keep them overnight before they're hearing the next day. It takes a policeman off the beat for a full day. It's ridiculous. We've got a tremendous number of juvenile offenders here. We need to be locking them up.
You know, literally time's running out, but looking ahead, what is your top priority for the upcoming session?
Well, I think it's a budget session. I think we've got to take a really good look at the budget and try to get back to zero-based budgeting, try to control our spend and the road plan. You know, we're going to produce another 2-year budget and a 6-year road plan, and those are the most important things that we'll do. And I'm always looking out for personal liberty, for privacy, for election integrity, but the big things are going to be budget and road plan.
Sounds fantastic. John Hodgson, State Representative John Hodgson, it's been an honor to have you on today's Kentucky's Voice. Folks, we'll see you next time, tomorrow at the same time. See you then.
Thanks, Bob.
Good job, John.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, fellers.
Always fun.
Good time. The hour goes by pretty quick.
It does. Always.
Yeah. Okay, so 4 o'clock today, I'll see how bad my turkey neck looks on TV.
Yeah.
Can you run some kind of a filter to make me look a little less wrinkly?
Well, I'm kind of in that same boat. I've been trying to figure out, do I start zipping up or tying up the top button, or I don't know. I'm just at a point, I don't give a crap. I'm getting older and there's not much I can do.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know, hey, it'll be 4 o'clock. And apparently they were having lots of issues on the radio side today. So that'll be good. And John, I definitely want to have you back again. I'd like for this to be at least a monthly thing. You know,
yeah.
we get and do.
Well, and I think it's great doing the TV and radio combined because, you know, it's important for me as a politician is I need, even if people aren't listening 100%, if they see my face and my name on TV, that's very helpful to me.
Yeah, I think it's good all the way around. But do appreciate you, my friend. And again,
appreciate
I'll talk to Caroline and we'll see when like you say, it'll probably be one of those rubberneck chicken.
Yeah, we'll sit next to you at the rubber chicken dinner.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, buddy.
All right, thanks, brother.
Take care. All right, see you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, voice in the sky.
Yes, it's Daniel, but he's handing off to a good guy. Jay Brown is awesome too. So, all right.
Cool. Later.
See you guys.